Schmidlin here for Paper Tray Ink. I'm hosting this week's Make It Monday video tutorial. This week it's all about layers, whether it's cardstock layering, ink layering, or layering of die cuts. It's a lot of fun and I hope you'll join us. To start, I'm going to show you how I layer ink onto my stamped images. You can see that just by using one image and adding different layers of ink in partial places, it adds some shading and some great depth. Okay, to begin, I have my die cut image. I'm going to use the holly from the Spruce and Sprigs. Place that in my MISTI. Get my image lined up. I'm going to begin by stamping my lightest green, and I'm going to start with green parakeet. Just ink up my image, the whole thing. And I like to stamp it twice. It gives it more of an opaque, solid coverage. But this time, before stamping it, I'm going to use a sponge and a little bit of new leaf. I'm going to add some ink just towards the bottom. Let's see if you can see that. So you have to, especially working with, colors that are so similar, add several layers. So skipping inking up the whole thing with green parakeet and just using the new leaf. You can start to see some of that color. I think I'm going to do that one more time. And I actually want to add just even more, so I'm going to go in here with a little bit of pine feather. It's quite a bit darker, so I'm going to use a light touch there. I think I'll add just one more time, do that. And there you can see the layered ink on my leaf. Okay, continuing with our ink layering, I've got 3 black layers here. And these two are from the Tag Sale number 12 die set that just released. And I like to add a little bit of ink definition between the layers, since especially when I'm layering color on color, such as all of this black here. This also works really well because it creates kind of a chalkboard look, but it actually would look good in any color, on any color cardstock. So I'm going to use a little bit of white ink, pigment ink, and I have my 3 black layers. I've already embossed the sentiment from the Pen and Ink Christmas stamp set, the Merry and Bright, and I've die cut my layers. I'm going to start by just using a paper towel, dabbing it in some ink. You can go sideways, up and down, but I kind of like to do it in a circle. It eliminates like streaks where you see where you ran the paper towel across the paper. This kind of eliminates it. So, and you can also take the other side of the paper towel and kind of wipe some of it off if you feel like you got a little too much on there. See a little bit of that chalkboard look there. So I'm just going to continue on all 3 layers. Okay, I've got my different cardstock layers done. You can see I've got my card base inked up, my background layer, and my 2 tag pieces. One thing that I love to do when I'm layering cardstock pieces is to pop them up and use dimensional foam. This works really nice, especially again when it's color on color like this, tone on tone. You can see it really sticks out a little bit more. So I'm gonna just kind of line that up a little bit. I love adding dimension to my layers. It kind of, you notice them a lot more. And it also helps for our next step when layering die cuts. We're going to add some places to be able to tuck them into. Let's see. Now I'm not going to stick this down very hard because when I layer my die cuts, sometimes I need to lift this layer up to kind of tuck in some of those die cuts underneath. And speaking of all those die cuts, I have all of them ready. Many that I have already done the ink layering on. So okay, I'm going to start with my biggest pieces right here. I like to just use a liquid glue. It's a little bit slower drying than using like adhesive, like a tape adhesive. So it allows me to play with it. So a lot of times when I'm layering these, I like kind of play around with them a little bit. So I'm going to see, and you can see I'm tucking them underneath these pieces. And we won't do that with all of them. It's going to build extra dimension and give it a little more three-dimensional look. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the holly leaves. Now I want to get even a little bit more dimension out of these. So I'm going to add a little bit of foam pieces just to the ends of these. Okay, so now this is the fun part. I usually start by stamping and die cutting all of the pieces that I want to use, the greenery, the flowers, or whatever. And I take a liquid adhesive and add a little bit to the bottom. So this helps it stay not dry as quickly. So you can manipulate it, move it, put it where you want, kind of see. Sometimes the best way to do it is just to put it there and see if you like it or not. And one thing that a little hint that I like to do is use some tweezers for the smaller pieces. It helps so you don't get glue on your fingers. You avoid all the stickiness and getting it all over their stamped image. At least that's what I do anyway. So I'm using both the Holiday Greens and the Spruce and Sprig stamp and die sets from Paper Tray. I love how they look together. I think they mix and match really well. And you notice some of the pieces I'm gluing directly to the layers of cardstock, and some of them I'm using dimensional foam to add some more dimension and height to my projects. That's the fun of layered die cuts. You can just layer them and they look great. There, I think I like the placement, and to top that off I would just add some string to the top of that tag. Can't forget more dimensional foam to pop this up between layers. Obviously this doesn't make the most mailing friendly card, so just by adding the ink that can give enough definition between the layers that would work. I love me some dimensional foam, so I'm just gonna eyeball this, try to center it. So I just add a little string and a few sequins to get the finished product. So I've got ink layered onto my actual cardstock background pieces. My background cardstock pieces are layered, separated with dimensional foam. I've got ink layered on my die cut pieces, and I've layered those die cut pieces and tucked them in between the other cardstock layers to create a fun three-dimensional look. This has been Laurie Schmidlin for Paper Tray Ink. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you get a chance to try out some of these layering techniques.